JPMorgan is out there spreading FUD once again, but things aren't really as they seem. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Investors flee from risk assets as JPMorgan ups recession odds to 40%. So there's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt in the system, and JPMorgan has pretty much added to that fear by upgrading their recession odds. By the way, JPMorgan for the last, 5 years now, have been predicting a recession in the United States. It's nothing new. And each time they come out and predict a recession, which may or may not happen, things are going in a bad direction in terms of, money printing, inflation, etc. But, things are holding up compared to what people predicted that things were going to be. So the likes of JPMorgan coming out and saying, there's a 40% chance of a recession. First of all, can I just say that means there's a 60% chance that we don't get a recession. But I think humanity, we're more sort of cup is half empty. So we tend to see negative more than we do see positive. So economists on Wall Street investment bank JPMorgan have raised their recession risks this year to 40%. Up from 30% at the beginning of 2025. We see a material risk that the US falls into recession this year owing to extreme US policies, wrote the analysts according to the Wall Street Journal. So they're saying that this is basically a self-inflicted recession and it is exacerbated by the policies of the administration. Analysts at Goldman Sachs economists also raised their 12-month recession probability to 20% from 15%. So you can see that Goldman Sachs is less bearish than JPMorgan. JPMorgan is a huge grizzly bear when it comes to the economy, right? They said that the forecast should rise further if the Trump administration remains committed to the policies, even in the face of much worse data. So basically, this is a kind of like a, things are in Trump's hands kind of article saying that Trump has the power to not make this happen. Meanwhile, Morgan Stanley economists lowered their economic growth forecast last week and raised inflation expectations. The bank predicted a GDP growth of just 1.5% in 2025, falling to 1.2% in 2026. So the outlook is not only bad for this year, going into 2026, of course, when I believe the bear market would begin, the end of the crypto bull run would be somewhere at the end of 2025, beginning of 2026, if we follow the pattern that we always have. Some people believe that the 4-year cycle is over for Bitcoin and altcoins. I believe it's still intact. I think we have another one, at least, maybe even 2 cycles to go, even with the institutions buying in, etc. And as you can see, macro events have a massive influence on what actually happens as well. And huge macro events like what we're going through right now have the capability to halt even the most bullish market of all. It comes despite a key economic advisor to President Donald Trump's pushed back against talks of a recession. Speaking to CNBC on March 10th, Kevin Hassett, who heads the National Economic Council, said there are many reasons to be optimistic about the US economy. There are lots of reasons to be extremely bullish about the economy going forward, but for sure, this quarter, there are some blips in the data, he said. So this personality is bullish on the US economy, saying that there are different reasons. I believe so too. I believe there are different reasons to be bullish. I do agree that there are many risks of inflation. I think the major risk of inflation is because of the overprinting of money that happened during the pandemic. And yes, to an extent, some of it is exacerbated by the tariffs and trade wars and stuff. But I think that the tariffs and trade wars are a byproduct, right, of the excessive money printing that got the United States and the big economies of the world in this situation in the first place. So what is the market feeling like? $81,000 and some change. That's actually not too bad. That represents a decent recovery from yesterday's 78,000. Who would have thought would be at 78,000 Bitcoin in March of 2025? Anything can happen, guys. And honestly, I can't believe that we got yet more opportunities to buy. Well, I say I can't believe, I do believe, because this sort of thing happens pretty much every cycle. In the last cycle, we got a lot of these dips. We had the COVID dip. We had there were at least two dips, right? We had the COVID dip. We had the Elon Musk Tesla dip, which wasn't as big as the COVID dip. We had the China Bitcoin mining ban dip. So we had all these dips all over the place, 10, 20% dips during the run. So this is something that I'm used to and I've seen before. And however, no amount of seeing it before ever prepares you for the emotions that you feel when these things happen, which is why you have to continue to have nerves of steel and detach your emotions from what's going on. I mean, like, we are right now at extreme fear 15. That's probably the lowest I've ever actually seen it. I know it's been lower than that. I believe it was at 8 during the FTX collapse. I personally didn't actually see it then. I didn't look at the index, but this is probably the lowest that I've seen, at least in a very, very long time. And that's not good for sentiments. But what it is good for, not financial advice, your own research, is buying, right? When people are fearful, that's when you buy. The millionaires are made in the down markets and not when everything is pumping, right? That's, when everything is pumping and it's a no-brainer, that's usually time to take profits, not financial advice, to do your own research. So the question though is, what was JPMorgan doing this whole time in the last 4 years while they've been preaching recession, recession, recession? Well, April 26, 2021, JPMorgan announced plans to offer an actively managed Bitcoin fund to private clients in partnership with NYDIG, NYDIG, with a potential rollout as early as summer 2021. August 6, 2021, JPMorgan rolled out access to 6 crypto funds for wealth management clients, including Grayscale's Bitcoin Trust, Grayscale's Bitcoin Cash Trust, Grayscale's Ethereum Trust, Grayscale's Ethereum Classic Trust, Osprey Bitcoin Trust, and yada, yada, yada. Basically, obviously, they weren't buying actual Bitcoin, actual Ethereum. They were exposing their clients to, Grayscale's trusts. So they understand trusts as a traditional financial instrument, which is why they were confident and comfortable with it. Now, what the actual executives at JPMorgan were doing, we wouldn't actually ever know, because obviously they won't declare that publicly, including the CEO himself, who was like the big FOD star in this ecosystem. What he's doing with his actual private money, we don't really know. Within the company, they would know, because I remember back when I worked in those circles, you had to declare your investment, especially in financial instruments, to the company to avoid conflicts of interest. It was a legal and compliance thing. So within the business, even though they're all sworn to secrecy, they would all know X and Y person holds Bitcoin, X and Y person holds that. If not your colleagues, at least the HR department and the compliance department would know. March 19th, 2021, JPMorgan launched a cryptocurrency exposure basket, an ETF-style product focusing on companies involved with crypto, e.g. MicroStrategy, Square, etc. So they launched a kind of, index of crypto-related companies, which is quite interesting, I think. May 10th, 2024, JPMorgan disclosed holdings in spot Bitcoin ETFs. So basically, they themselves held Bitcoin ETFs. February 18th, 2025, this is just last month, JPMorgan reported a significant increase in the Bitcoin ETF holdings. All right, so while they're flooding everybody, telling you that everything is going to zero, they increased their holdings, okay? And to add a little bit of context, JPMorgan also holds Ethereum and has acted as an authorized participant for BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF, facilitating liquidity. However, specific acquisition dates for these roles are not detailed beyond the initial 2024 disclosures. So when we get their next disclosure, who knows what they're going to say? Who knows what we're going to find? Who knows if we're going to find saying that in March 2025 that they bought the dip. right? I won't be surprised to see that. So always remember that these companies are fraudsters, okay, especially JPMorgan, big grizzly bear, but in the back, they're doing something completely different. Also, the charts tell a different story. While everybody's fearful, the price of Bitcoin is actually in recovery mode, gliding ever so gradually upwards. So don't miss your chance to load up if you haven't yet. Not financial advice, your own research. I loaded a little bit more this morning. Not Bitcoin, but that other coin. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.